Welcome back, everyone. Today we will focus on the Celts of Europe. The Celts lived across most of Europe during the Iron Age. Today, the Celts live in Wales, Ireland, Scotland, the Isle of Man, Cornwall, and in Brittany, France. Their culture lives on in language, music, song, art, and literature. The early Celts didn't leave books behind because they didn't read and write. Word of mouth and memory were the Celts' way of recording events. But luckily, the Greeks and Romans did write about the Iron Age Celts. They tell us that the Celts lived in tribes. They wore gold and loved to fight and drink wine. They also wrote about the power of the Celts' priests, who were called Druids. The Druids were very important in Iron Age society, but we know very little about them. They were the Celts' priests, responsible for all sorts of religious ceremonies. They were educated and powerful members of the tribe and were well respected by the other Celts. The Romans say that the Celts lost their tempers and quarreled often, but we don't know that. After all, they couldn't have been fighting all the time. They'd be too tired to do any farming. The farmers had to be ready to fight whenever the head of the tribe, or chieftain, called on them. The Celts often fought naked, and it's believed that women would fight as well. It was said that Celtic women were as large and frightening as the men. If this is true, no wonder they took part in the fighting. Their main weapons were the sword and spear, and they sometimes fought in horse-drawn war chariots. The Romans, with their well-organized armies, became the dominant power in the ancient world. Julius Caesar led Roman legions to conquer Gaul. From there, he then attacked Britain in 55 BC. However, he was unsuccessful in settling Britain. The Romans did not settle in Britain until they renewed their attack on the island nearly 100 years later under Emperor Claudius. The Romans came to Britain looking for riches, land, slaves, and most of all, iron, lead, zinc, copper, silver, and gold. They came from Rome in Italy, fighting other tribes and gaining land across most of Europe and North Africa. Even though the Celts were proud, brave, and skilled fighters, they were rather undisciplined. They really had little chance against the Romans' order and power. And of course, in the end, they were defeated by the Romans. The Romans took over the Celts' land and built towns, while many of the Celts fled to the neighboring island of Ireland. After 400 years, the Romans left Britain due to the threat of Germanic tribes invading Italy. Their empire was coming to an end. In the western parts of the British Isles, Celtic people survived, despite a new threat, the Saxons. The Celtic tribes were pushed westwards out of England, surviving only in the western extremity of Cornwall, the province of Wales, and Ireland. The Celtic languages are living proof of these people, who for nearly 1,000 years, until about AD 500, are the Europeans of the Atlantic coast. Another prominent trace of their culture is through Celtic art, spanning a similar period and finding a late flowering in medieval Christian art. Irish monks of the 7th and 8th centuries created illuminated manuscripts, which are among the greatest treasures of Celtic and early Christian art. Today, as many as 45% of people in the United States and Canada have Celtic roots. Irish scholars and artists were influenced by Christianity. The Irish Church was founded by St. Patrick. Born in Britain in the 400s AD, St. Patrick was kidnapped when he was young and taken to Ireland by Irish pirates. Later, he escaped to Europe, where he studied to be a priest. After becoming a bishop, he returned to Ireland and converted the people to Christianity. He spread his message all through the island and set up many new churches. When Ireland lost contact with Rome during the Germanic invasions, the Irish church was left to do its own thing with no pope to lead it. Abbots headed the different clans of the Irish church, often setting up their own monasteries. These monasteries became the centers of Irish life and could be found throughout Ireland.